So we're about to start our afternoon session. We've had two fantastic panels this morning. Our panel discussion this afternoon is on the relationship between night sky and the artificial light design and the night sky. We're going to start off with a presentation to set the tone for one of the discussions from Charles Stone, and then after that I'm going to invite the panel over. They're going to introduce themselves for 5 minutes and set out what their thoughts are about lighting and night sky, to give you all a bit of context about where they come from and what they think about the subject. And then we're going to open the floor for questions, which I'm sure there's going to be lots. But without further ado, Charles, will you please take the stage?
Thank you, Martin. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Sam. And the guys at the tech station, thank you, and thank you all for coming. All right. This is good. It's got forward and back. When Martin contacted me and let me know we'd be doing the night sky talk, I thought, oh, no, not that one. But he said, no, it'll be all right. And I have to admit, I got interested in a way that I hope will entertain you and provoke you a little bit. It's my job to first introduce myself and then to introduce the topic, and I hope give you some fodder for questions. So, first, there I am. I'm Charles Stone. I am president of the lighting design firm with offices in New York and Seattle, and I joined these guys, the founders, 40 years ago this year. Yeah. And no, don't do that. Well, here we are a few years ago, and we had the nice picture for the brochure, and here we are just about 3 weeks ago. They're still coming to the office. Our whole, fashion sense really hasn't evolved. And I show you this to you because we are very proud of the depth. If you want to know who I am, I've spent a lot of time in these 40 years trying to learn my art, craft, and science of lighting. We have the younger generation following us who are terrific. They have 20 years with me at the firm. And in this picture are people who have, actually we span 7 decades. People in their 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way up into the 80s, those two guys I started with. That's pretty exciting to me, and it thrills me, and it's one of the things that keeps me going. If you like numbers, we have a legacy of projects, people and projects and places, and recognition, which I'm very proud of. I can do a slide like this, maybe 10 times. So fortunate are we to have worked on wonderful projects around the globe. And I've got to travel around the globe. Who am I? I'm the guy that I hope I've been to the restaurant before you, a week before. I've been to every red dot on the map except for 2 or 3. And we've received wonderful recognition for our work, of which I'm very proud. And we worked in the neighborhood. This project with IMK would not meet today's sustainable ideas because all the lighting in the picture is incandescent. And we worked down the street. There are 27 setbacks on the Burj Khalifa, and they are lighted originally with metal halide and now changed to LED, and that still forms the basis for the nighttime image. It's an interesting note. There's 7 times as much electrical power used in the fountain lighting than is on the building. It was done before LEED was in use. Well, we're somewhat known for the Tribute in Light in New York. Now, what can I tell you about 88 7,000 watt xenon projectors pointing straight up in a talk about humans and the night sky? Well, I can say it's only on for now only one night a week. I mean, one night a year. and it takes a week to put it together, but it's really not on for very many hours. That's my excuse and that's my rationalization. We'll talk about that a little bit later. This is our first LED project in the public realm. It doesn't change color, it's just red, the metaphor being the Big Apple. How many have sat there? So, thanks. And we worked on other continents. One of my favorite projects in Europe, of course it's uplighting, but it's a matter of which white. Or in Hong Kong, the airport, which I'm very proud of, and I did have hair when we started the airport. All right, let's get to business. This is a slide provided by the Dark Skies organization, and the five, I won't read to you, but the five sort of design basic one-word descriptions of how to comply to dark skies right there on the screen. If you're a lighting designer, how many of you are lighting designers? We're all in the industry. Well, half the room are lighting designers. You already know this stuff, and in fact, you're supposed to use light where it's needed, and you should be controlling it, and why would you use it brighter than you need it anyway? So I think a lot of what is baked into our understanding of lighting for the night can be boiled down even farther. Aim the light downward, use warmer white, and consider the impact of the anthropogenic human-generated light at night, called ALAN now in the papers, throughout your entire design process. We're going to come to that at the very end of my 20 minutes. Now I'm going to show you a series of slides here. Either you already have the slide, or you're already quite familiar with all of the topic that is expressed in the slide. Everybody here understands that dynamic white is a natural process. This is why we're interested in it. That's why all the manufacturers are showing you their controlled ability to produce the spectrum across the white. And everybody in the room understands that after the talks are at 4 o'clock, you should take a walk outside. If you're jet lagged the way I am, you know that timing and duration of bright light in the afternoon will help your clock reset. You already know that. You're familiar with this. And to take it a step farther, you probably have done the reading about the importance of certain wavelengths on the stimulus, particularly the melatonin suppression stimulus. So you have some understanding of that. So I'm adding to a list here of things you already know and consider. And the previous talk, Mark's talk, the thoughtfulness and optimism embodied in what is really a kind of scary time with all this disruption. But I say to you in this list, and here we have the bug, I love the bug rating, teaching us how to make exterior light fixtures, use them, and understand where the light goes. So this disruption that we are experiencing, we're already attacking it and creating tools for ourselves to deal with it as lighting designers. I quite like the lighting zones. I quite like that we can categorize it depending on where we live. I have another slide here. You may not be familiar with the Portal scale. It's actually a very handy metric. So if you step outside tonight in Dubai, you're likely to agree that we're a number 8 or maybe a number 9. But go 30, 40 kilometers out of town, and maybe we can get down to 1 or 2 to experience that night sky. So we actually have metrics, we have tools to understand what we're talking about and what our goals should be. All this is because we are becoming more and more aware, because of research and common sense, frankly, about the deleterious effects of this anthropogenic lighting at night. And these impacts on ourselves, on wildlife, flora, fauna, humans. Well, for example, the birds, they fly in migratory paths. The one that goes from East Africa to East Asia goes right across Dubai. Now, why should we care about that? Well, if we're creating attractive nuisance at night for birds, they're banging into buildings, and that doesn't go well for the bird. So we're having an impact on wildlife. I know something about that because look at this picture closely, you'll see all the birds flying in the beams of light. Well, the Audubon Society was ultimately satisfied when they understood that we would only be doing it one night a year. That doesn't mean it's the best solution, but you have to make an argument for urban humanity as well, I think. So what does this look like if we deploy these tools properly, thoughtfully? Well, here are pathways done right by my friend Nancy Clem, and here are roadways done right. The light is where you need it, and so on, all those tenets that I showed you on the first business slide here. And I can now run through a few of our projects where we've confronted this. So we did the Washington Monument 20 years ago. We used a light developed for NASCAR racing, which is heavily shuttered, like a theatrical shuttered light, and we turned it 90 degrees, and that's how the obelisk was lighted, which made it sharper in contrast and reduced light pollution. And more recently, in the last 8 years, the National Museum of African American History and Culture is not floodlighted at all. It's only lighted from the inside. It's self-illuminated, you might say, or a lantern. And recently, during the pandemic, we opened the Seattle Art Museum Edition. Picture of Seattle, you can see the Space Needle on the right over the water. And it's lit as a lantern. It's lit as a lantern with only downlight in the sockets. So now we are adhering to best practice. And I think the result is good looking. Some less obvious and interesting, quirky projects now. The Aeronautical University, well, it looks like we've thrown a lot of light at it, and there is uplighting, but it's all constrained, and we improved it with the calculation, and here's why. Right next door, there's an observatory, and they required a complete calculation showing the light that would be escaping the building. A little footnote, that cigarette pole, the typical campus pole, is the campus standard. Don't blame me. In 2017 and 2018, we got to illuminate 21 buildings on the Shanghai Bund. One of the most exciting projects I've ever participated in. And you may say, well, it's all uplighting for the buildings. Well, it is. Sometimes it's not what you do, it's what you didn't do. If you look across the river to the Pudong, it looks like that. So I'd rather have that than that in my memory, because I know I'm on the Bund. I can never forget that image. There are a lot of colored lights out there. All right, another project. This I'll show you a little bit of detail on what this really means. What's the practical impact from the lighting designer confronted with all of these different tools and all of these different problems and all these metrics? Well, there's a project in New York called Little Island, designed by Heather Wick at Pier 55, that was envisioned to fill this space along the waterfront and become a unique place for performances, public gathering, a park. But before we could do that, we had to satisfy the reproductive requirements of the American eel. And to do that, first we took an existing lighting levels survey, and then we provided illumination levels at the water. And then we produced detailed drawings showing light mitigation from the fixtures to prevent the light from falling onto the water. And as the project came to be, you will see in a few slides here that I'll show you the finished project. Most of the light is captured by the building underneath, by the strange scoops that hold it up. And most of the lighting on the site is carefully controlled downward-facing lighting. And lighting that is in trees is frequently coming from the poles. So that large tree on the right-hand side is not uplighted, it's lit from the pole, and there is additional lighting from the poles onto trees. There are some uplights, and they are 15-watt LED little uplight things. So there are not a lot of lumens directed up. And I can prove it to you because if you look closely at the whole master shot, you don't see very many pinpricks of brightness. And so, to me, it's a model of what can be done Let's not complain about it. Let's turn it into a design opportunity. In fact, we should be considering the dark. We should always be considering the dark. So what I would like to provoke you with is the idea that instead of viewing the list of constraints, yes, you're professionals, become familiar with them. But when it comes time to design the project, let's just start from a different point of view. And why not start with the big picture? That would be the Milky Way, I think. I don't think everybody sees the Milky Way if you live in the city. And in fact, this is an image. Jim Benya, my friend Jim Benya, noted lighting designer and engineer, sent me these pictures the other day. He said, this is all you need. The one on the left is one evening in Los Angeles, and then the lights went out. This is a 1984 blackout. So the point is, the sky was always there. The Milky Way is always there. Why do we spend so much time not being able to see it? Now, I see it a little better than you do, but not much. Not much to see. Wait a minute. Artists understand this. The last time I checked, all of you lighting designers considered yourselves at least part-time artists in your work. When you go into this gallery, this Norwegian artist, something is revealed. It's revealed because of the dark. It's a sculpture made possible by the dark. So Erik Hilly Olsen has done something quite spectacular. In fact, I think that the Scandinavian people that live in the north, people that live up near the circle, have a better appreciation of what the potential is for us as lighting designers. This is a picture from the great lighting designer, my friend Eric Selmer. And of course, it's a picture of dark. You know this sensation if you've been in a snow-covered place under moonlight or starlight on a cloudy night. You can see the light in the dark. Look what a candle in the snow can do. Or if you'd like to go outside of Moab, Utah, and find the arches. This is Corona Arch. This is one of the ones that you find the YouTube videos that they jump off. You can't do that. Okay, don't do that. But one torchlight and the Milky Way and the canyon beauty revealed by the darkness. Now, if you lived in Trondheim, where Eric and his wife live, with a window to the north, you might be able, it's only 200,000 people in Trondheim, Norway. You might be able to see the northern lights from your window because there's so little light pollution, you can experience the true night. On the Bortle sky scale, he's down around a 3 or a 4. Because this is there. And as lighting designers, we should remember this, and instead of going to a project with all these rules bothering us, and all this constraining metrics and ordinances, regulations, turn your head around and look away at the dark, and always consider the dark in your designs. Now let's see what the panel and all of you have to say about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. Perfectly setting the scene. Raising lots of questions, I hope. So now I'd just like to invite the panel to come up on the stage, and then we're going to give them 5 minutes each to introduce themselves to ladies and gentlemen. So as we've done with all the other ones, we're going to start with a little quote for the backdrop there. Excellent, thank you very much. So, I'm going to ask each of the participants now just to let you know who they are, where they're from, and what their sort of thoughts are about this subject before we open it for questions. Andy, I'm going to hand you the clicker so you can. Do you have any slides? Are you microphone?
Yeah. Hi everybody, I'm glad to see such an amazingly filled room, and that has a lot to do with Charles, so I'm sure. But also about the topic that we're going to discuss today. I'm an architectural lighting designer. My name's Courtney Mark. I've lived in Dubai for the last 10 years. I own my own practice called Studio Mark. And I'm also an IDA advocate for the Middle East. How many in the room already know what IDA stands for? Raise your hand. so not that many, which ID is the International Dark Sky Association. There are multiple chapters all over the world. We don't have one quite yet in the UAE, but to be announced in the upcoming months. For the last 6 years, I've been an IDA member, and I've also designed 1 out of 3 projects. I bring to the table dark sky principles, and I make sure that my clients understand the importance of dark sky. So I'm just here to support all these amazing kind of group of people that have come together and to talk about dark skies and what we're doing in the Middle East and what all these other panelists are doing as well, which is very fascinating.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. Thank you for joining us.
Hello everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Stephanie Reiki. I'm a senior lighting designer at Multi Lighting Consultancy. First of all, it's a pleasure to see this massive community all gathered here today, and thank you for joining the talk. Now, we all deserve to see the stars. What a beautiful sentence. What an impactful and powerful sentence. Yet, at the same time, I feel like we have the tendency to forget that we deserve to see the stars. So, by a raise of hands, how many of this beautiful audience has been able to see the stars on a daily basis? Well, lovely. I'm happy to see that I have a few hands raised, yet at the same time, it's a bit worrisome because on a daily basis, for people who live in a city like Dubai, it actually proves to be a little difficult to be able to see the stars. And therefore, it is somehow an intrinsic need, and it's something that our ancestors highly connected to nature, that today we are unable to see. And so as a standpoint to this lovely discussion, dark skies, I wanted to consider another standpoint, let's say a different perspective, which I have called the unconsidered scope. Lighting design. So we are lighting designers, and as part of this community, we would like to understand our clients' needs, what the project requirements are, and so we always communicate that with our clients. We try to understand what their needs are, and so we look at these beautiful pictures and we see, this beautiful skyline of Dubai, and it is very important for us to understand what the project that we're working on is trying to convey. At the same time, we do face an issue in the Middle East, which is the fact that some clients are very adamant on bigger, better, and brighter. And therefore, in other words, there's some sort of competition amongst projects who has the higher intensity, who is, which project is more attractive. And therefore, it is our duty as lighting designers and part of this community to be able to mitigate this, to educate people, to raise this collective consciousness as to why it is important to light architecture, but lighting is complementary. It provides some sort of interest, it adds interest to the building, but it doesn't necessarily have to make it stand out in a way that is a bit oppressive, let's say. Now, there are some studies that say that there's a 49% increase in light pollution over the past 25 years, and if you ask me, I think it's even a little more, because most people who now live in cities are unable to see the starry night and basically the dark sky on a day-to-day basis. More than 80% of people, of the population worldwide, is now unable to see the stars at night and live in a sky globe. And here are 2 very interesting pictures which I've taken recently. One of a shop frontage signage, which completely illuminates the seating area outside of it. And in that sense, there is no consideration for that signage and how this is impacting the surrounding. And another example is a construction site that we can see on the bottom right. And that construction site is just facing my building, and therefore I am unable to sleep at night without blackout curtains. So this is part of the unconsidered scope. Yes, we are lighting designers, but we also need to remember that to some extent we have limited capabilities, because to some extent we have a voice, but we need to also raise it higher so that we can create this collective consciousness. two other pictures of one of Marina, the Marina Towers, and another one of the billboards on one of the main highways in Dubai. Yet again, another part of our unconsidered scope. Because if we plan on putting advertising media facades everywhere on buildings that are at very close proximity of one to one another, then what are we doing other than maybe highly impacting the lives of those living in those buildings? And then, of course, we look at the advertisements on highways, and we look at that massive beam angle of light that's coming out. And yes, we just pass, we drive across it on the highway. We don't really give it much consideration, but it is our duty. We have to consider this more often. There's an unconsidered scope of lighting that does not necessarily fall within the capabilities of designers and the lighting community, but it is our duty to create this awareness and to teach people around us and to maybe create guidelines that could mitigate, to coordinate with governments and municipalities in order to actually set a set of standards and guidelines that could help us deal with this unconsidered scope. Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Miriam Khassab. I'm not a designer, obviously. I come from a different field. Say, I'm a astronomy outreach coordinator and a president of Bahrain Stargazers Astronomy Club, which is part of the Stargazer Astronomical Science Center. I'm here to talk to you about what brought me here and why we are, what happened to us basically with the light pollution and why we are suffering as astronomers. Before that, I would like to introduce what Bahrain Stargazers is. It's a non-profit organization. We have around 150 members from all over the world, I would say, from Bahrain, Saudi, Sri Lanka, India, whatever. And we all gathered for one reason, which is the love for the night sky. We gathered to learn from each other and to observe the beauty of the sky. But we have obviously a problem, a big problem, I'd say, for the astronomy field. Mainly what we do is we focus on astronomy outreach programs, space outreach program, and we included light pollution as well, because astronomy and the sky, what basically part of astronomy activities is observation as well. And you cannot observe, you cannot enjoy the night sky if you have lights all around you, right? Well, this is a little picture over here. I don't know if you can see it, Bahrain. It's sad to say, we don't, as stargazers, as astronomy enthusiasts, we don't have space to stargaze. We don't have space to enjoy the dark sky. It's from north to the south. It's really bad. Maybe other GCC countries, they have areas where they can escape to the desert. But in my country, sadly, even our desert is highly polluted with light. So when we go outside with the members to observe the night sky, we are surrounded with light, and later you will see the pictures. So in 2019, we said, let's do something about it. Let's take a step ahead. We joined the International Dark Sky Association. I'm the Dark Sky Advocate and Delegate. Also, I joined the IAU as an astronomy outreach coordinator and the Dark Sky Ambassador. Basically, what I do is I decided to educate people about light pollution, because maybe you're here as an engineer, you know what light pollution is, but for the public, trust me, the people who know what light pollution is are the minority only. And when I, as an astronomy outreach coordinator, and if I go out to the students or to the public and I tell them, let's reduce light pollution, they go like, what's for? Could you please tell us what's for? Why do you want me as an individual to protect the sky? Like, it's something like weird for them. It's like something they hear it for the first time. And I cannot do something about it because I'm not an engineer. I don't work with the government. But let's say in the future our governments decide to change and take the step ahead to reduce light pollution, but also the individuals also need to reduce light pollution. Let's say we have good street lighting, good lighting on the buildings, good projects, but what about the individuals? Sadly, I forgot to post a picture of my neighbor, because my neighbors, I think Stephanie said about how projects, yes, they light up they use a lot of lights just to show that our project is better than yours. But it happens also with neighbors, it happens also with individuals. Like my neighbor, they have these lovely lights, festival lights, and they don't know that these festival lights are for festivals. You don't need to turn them on all day night, right? So yeah, so basically this is my job. And last thing here, pictures of us. So funny, these activities called stargazing activities. As you can see, you can't see any single stars. We still go out because these sessions help us to understand and talk and learn from each other. But yeah, I hope with this initiatives we make a change in the future and we spread the word. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miriam. So, Abdulaziz, and over to you now to this.
Thank you. Yes, hello everyone. My name is Abdulaziz Al-Azam. I'm actually the founder of DTS. It's an architectural lighting design firm based in Saudi Arabia. I have done several different projects throughout the past 12 years. Today's presentation is going to be about dark sky compliant project, which is in Al city. I have taken the privilege and honor to work on Al last year in 2022, and the span of these three projects were actually 3 months, because Al was always designed and constructed in a way where seasons are very important. So it is very important to deliver your design and your work in a very short time, and it is very important that you are able to set the standards as likable. I will not talk a lot about dark sky standards and so on, because I think my colleagues already talked about it a lot. So I would skip these two parts and would like to go directly to the project images. The first project is the Incense Road. The reason why it's called the Incense Road, because it was part of a very old historic merchandise road that was used hundreds of years ago, and it passed through Al-Ula. Our main job was actually to deliver the whole lighting design scheme of the Incense Road, and we had to create and deliver dark sky compliant lights. The main competitive part was actually time. We had to do the design as well as securing the goods and supervising the installation in a period of each project was not more than 1 month. So these are actually the 3D simulations you're seeing. And it was done in a time where the contractor was producing of course the buildings are very old, they are set in the 70s, built from the 70s. And there were some additions. You can see these wooden balconies that were added where they had different shops there. Our design intent was to create, of course, enough lighting levels for the people to enjoy the night scene, but at the same time, we had to abide with the dark sky compliant regulations. So we have done some hidden linear cove lights, and for the canopies we have done also some linear lighting, as well as using catenary lighting for the pedestrians. So they have changed the streets from a car pathway to a pedestrian pathway. And you can see here, this is the true image of the site. These are all actually, the catenary lights are all customized steel tubes where we used inside them very simple light bulbs because the lead time was very short. So what we used here is actually, usually I don't mention brands, but these bulbs here you see, they are E14 dim to warm reflector bulbs from IKEA, because this was the only way to source more than 300 bulbs within a week of time. We had to buy all the bulbs from IKEA. Of course, from other suppliers from the local market. We have also a friend of ours who is taking photos here, my friend Abdulrahman from Sira. It was really a fascinating project. The only way to have such success is really to find and to select tools that are very simple to be used in such short time. The indirect lighting you're seeing in the terraces are actually incandescent LED bulbs with a 2200 Kelvin color temperature that were installed in the cavities of the left-out buildings as well as the terraces. And here also you can see some interesting applications of how we have hidden the linear lights. And of course we were obliged to use all the lights. They have to be in a very low output as well as having it all in 2700 Kelvin or even at lower color temperature. This is a sit-out area where we used our catenary customized lights. And what we did here is to have these tension cables with these cylinders, and we distribute them in different matters. Some images of full lighting, of course, because it's a better way to have a dark sky compliant lighting effect rather than having off lights. And these are the balconies I mentioned with the incandescent bulbs. Of course, also the lighting here for the benches is indirect and hidden. These are the real photos after the renders. We have also the cove lighting from above. You don't see any uplights, of course. All the lights has to be directed downwards and diffused. The other part is the old town. It's an extension of the project, but it has more of a heritage impact. Well, we were, of course, asked to highlight some heritage sites, as well as some areas that it should be an Instagrammable moment. So there were some artifacts distributed in front of these beautiful heritage areas, and we have distributed our lights in a way where they're hidden, and you can just see the inner glow of the cities. And these are also other catenary customized lights. I would like to mention an interesting story about these lights, that we produced these hand-woven ropes, hemp ropes, and they were given actually to some poor people to help to work on it. So it was actually also a CSR thing to do. This is also another different. Of course, here we used two different distribution. We had a focus light in order to create some contrast with lighting, as well as general lighting, where we use the incandescent bulbs. The last part of the Al-Ula projects was the oasis, and the oasis actually is somehow more interesting than the other parts because it has this heritage impact in a big scale, and we had more flexibility to distribute our lights in a way where we can really show the beauty of these leftover mud construction buildings that were untouched. And the most amazing part in all these projects that really when you walk during the night, you are able to see the stars in a very easy way, and at the same time you are enjoying these beautiful heritage buildings, and I really would advise anyone who is able to visit Saudi Arabia to go to Al Ula, because it's one of the few cities that still doesn't have a lot of modern touch in it. It still has this heritage touch. So I don't want to talk further on this matter. I hope my presentation was good enough, and thank you a lot for listening.
Okay, last but not least, Mohammed.
Hello everyone, it's really a pleasure to be here, and thanks Latin Middle East for organizing the event, and it's good to be with everyone here. I know most of you from the time when I was in Dubai. Just a bit of an introduction about myself. I'm Mohammed Bidani. I'm an associate partner at Delta Lighting Design. I used to work in the Lighting Design studio in Dubai for 5 years, and then I moved to the Delta Lighting studio in London, where I've been now working with that for the last 6 years. The subject of dark sky preservation was always embedded in our design process. And what I'm going to show you now in these images that you will see on the slides is, I'm not going to really describe much, but I just want you to immerse yourself into this project, which is some of the projects that we have developed. And we were lucky to work with clients that has the aspect of dark sky embedded in their image as a developer, and this is what they want to create in their own projects. So, in order for us to get back the dark sky, there's a lot of interesting ideas mentioned by my colleagues in the panel, but it's a collaborative effort really between different stakeholders to really achieve that experience. So, for example, the stakeholders, the main stakeholder will be the clients who are developing this project and are willing to really invest into having this sort of imagery and this value of having the dark sky back in their projects. And luckily, in this area, one of the biggest, I would say, developers are really interested in the subject and really trying to promote their image as a sustainable environment and as a dark sky preserved buildings and projects. That's luckily, it's a good opportunity for us to see what do we need to do as designers and as manufacturers as well. So we, as designers, we have to know that I want to iterate what Charles mentioned in his presentation. So really, it's an opportunity. It's not really a restriction, a restrictive factor. It's an added aesthetic value to your project to really enjoy your surrounding and to really enjoy the dark sky at night time. How can we make this experience available for people who are within these spaces? So there's really a very interesting aspect of it as an added value to the project rather than, beauty rating, fittings, detail out in mid lighting outward, and so forth. Also, I think we need to be careful not to deprive people from interesting experiences, like the Twin Tower in New York installation, which is, by the standards, would not really follow what we talk about as dark sky. But it's something that evokes your feeling and your emotions when you see this kind of applications. We don't really want to deprive users and people from interesting installation, but how do we really control it in a way that would make that would really have the value of the dark sky and the interesting inspiration and installation as well together, so we don't really be very restricted in a way that you cannot have a glowing lantern or you cannot have an interesting installation like the one we have here at Burj Khalifa or like the installation in New York, for example. So it's a very sensitive subject that I think we need to take it to look at it from different point of view. Yes, our goal is to preserve and bring back the dark sky. We don't want to deprive the design, as I mentioned as well. There is a role also in the education and regulation entities that needs to play together. So I think institutions here in the region need to tackle the subject from a local point of view as well. Because if you want to talk about dark sky in London or in Stockholm, it's not really the same as if you want to talk about dark sky in Dubai or in Saudi. And I lived in two cities in this world, in Dubai and in London, quite completely different in terms of how daylight interacts with people. Like the blue hours, which is after sunset until the sky is becoming dark, is like, I studied in Stockholm for 2 years when I was doing a master of lighting design. This is 3, 4, 5 hours. Very gradual dimming of daylight into the night. Your eyes is automatically have a long time to adjust. While in Dubai, this can happen in half an hour, and from daytime you're switched to night quickly. And that's why people, I think personally, that's why people think that, oh, it's too dark. When you show a project that is compliant with dark sky to look with it, right? They just perceive it too dark, because the way I adjust to this light levels and so on is different. So I think the local education institution and regulators need to be sensitive to the geographical locations and in terms of standards. And yes, of course, there will be standards that will be helpful, but definitely we shouldn't address it the same way it's addressed everywhere else, anywhere else in the world. The last one is probably manufacturers. I really want to talk about that because manufacturers have a very big scope gap in the market that they can take advantage of, which is how do you produce a city with dark sky qualities in mind. We talked about the UG rating, which is an interesting thing, of course, and it's good to provide to, but then there is a wide range of ways and methods that manufacturers can work with their own products to come up with families that is more helping designers to achieve this vision. We're talking about color temperature, maybe we need to be a little bit more warmer than what we have in the market now. We're talking about very interesting lighting distribution, which is not available in the market, and we try as designers always to customize things to fit in the project's requirements and so on. So I really see a very good gap to cover there. Last point I want to mention is about control, and it's really linked to what I said about designers. As designers, we don't want to deprive people from experiences that might require a bit of a glow or a bit of an interesting sparkle here and there. But this can be mitigated by controlling the light in a way that we have different scenes. After sunset in Dubai, you can still have some brightness in the building, but that can fade out gradually 9, 10, 11 p.m. So we can give the poor birds a bit of a night time to sleep, right? So it's a multi-stakeholders interest. If they all come together with a role in each one of them, and each one of them is aware of this role, I think we can really make a big transformation, and we can really get back our dark sky to the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. We're going to throw open the floor for questions now. So if anybody has a question, pop your hand up, and my glamorous assistant Sharon will come around with the microphone. You just mentioned about multi-stakeholder things. I'm going to ask Courtney. Courtney, how do you think we can ensure that there is joined-up thinking from all these different sides, from developers, designers, manufacturers, and as dreams, and from the general public? How can we make that happen?
I think there's one statement that, for me, it kind of sums it up and very quickly. And dark skies is not a me thing; it's a we thing. And what I mean by that is it takes a village to raise a child. It takes an army to fight a war, and it takes a community to come together with each other, and that's from all aspects of the community to really, bring these principles into play. It's about education. It's about, we with astronomers, Miriam is here. This is a very rare opportunity that it's not just a bunch of lighting designers on a panel, and I think that's really impactful. And I would say that we're starting to come together in the background, try to collaborate, try to reach out to each other, and really kind of bring dark skies to the forefront of a problem that we see every day. And Stephanie, you showed we live in the same neighborhood because I look at that crane every night and have to put my blackouts down to sleep, which I normally sleep with my windows open because I enjoy waking up to the sunshine. In Dubai, that is not a luxury that we have because of all the construction. Light pollution here is not just about the buildings emitting outside, it's about the community. Light trespass is not just from the buildings; it's also from the residential interiors. So if you do any kind of calculation study, you'll find that a lot of the light pollution is attributed to by actually the interiors spilling out into the exteriors and then being so bright that they overtake the exterior environment itself. So to answer your question, no, I think it's just about everybody coming together and realizing that this is not a one person fight. It's not one person in the ring. Coming from it from an architectural standpoint, from a lighting standpoint, from an archaeological standpoint, it's important that we all come together and really talk about it and take the steps necessary to make it happen.
Thank you. Good answer. Does anybody want to add anything on that one? No. Any questions on the floor? No. Okay. Well, carry on. If you don't mind. Miriam, I didn't know Bahrain was like that and completely light polluted. I've been an astronomer in Bahrain or a stargazer. It looks like a very frustrating pastime. Do you see in the region in general astrotourism becoming a thing? Can that help?
Actually we are trying to work on astrotourism in Bahrain as well, and I believe Saudi is doing so. I'm not sure about Emirates or Saudi. I don't have the information about that, but it is not only in Bahrain, all over the world. Astrotourism is becoming a thing now. We are combining tourism with education together, and astrotourism itself can educate people, educate students, kids. Because as I said at the beginning, I cannot fight and I cannot ask only governments and big companies, because I believe this is what we do. If we have a problem, we go straight forward to the governments and big companies, people with money, right? But at the same time, it's something that we should all be. I forgot to mention today, I can't prepare, and I'm wearing under one sky, under one night sky, because I took around and I saw a lot of designs, and if I'll be honest, I think a lot of designers might hate me because so many designs are not dark sky friendly, and maybe we are working so hard to make them look energy efficient lighting and so on, but we tend to forget that we should also combine light, dark sky as well, and yeah.
I think it's a good point in that is that it's really hard to make people think about the dark sky, the night sky, because they haven't seen it. So how do you make them appreciate something that they don't see? And like when Charles showed his 1984 image of the blackout, everybody's like, oh, that's what's up there. That's what people are trying to get back to. It's really difficult. I mean, if you could go to Barry and just flick a big switch for an hour, maybe that would make it work.
We need a Middle East blackout.
Maybe, that's it. One of the things, oh, you've got questions? Michael, please.
I was just going to say that there was a very similar thing, I think, in the pandemic. So I live in pretty much in central London, and when things stopped flying and cars stopped being on the road, the night sky was completely different, and everybody talked about it. It was really interesting, and everyone loved it, and then they forgot immediately. And I think that's you have things like Earth Hour, and you have initiatives where we briefly think about this thing, or we go on holiday and we see the night sky, and then we forget about it. So it's about how do we keep it sort of consistently in the mind of people.
Okay, go back. Thank you. Charles, question for you. Do you see light pollution and night sky protection coming from the client side at all in any of the briefs that you're getting for new projects?
I don't think we have, other than LEED requirements, and there are dark skies ordinances, and we have some. Sometimes we discuss the lighting zone. That will change. There'll be more discussion of it. I like what Sharon said, and I like your comments. I mean, if we teach the kids in school that it's up there, give it 10 or 20 years and we'll be thinking more about it in real practical terms.
Same question, I guess, to other designers on the panel. Abdulaziz, are you seeing it as part of the brief?
Yeah, I think, your question was really interesting about the awareness about seeing the stars. For us in Saudi or in the Gulf region, we have the memory of this image when we were, because a part of our culture is going to the desert and enjoying the scenery of the stars. And also in our history, we have a lot of scientists and Arab scholars who really did a lot of inventions in this matter. So, but at the same time, how the country is evolving, especially in Saudi Arabia with the construction boom that's happening, if there are no strong restrictions about dark sky, I truly believe it's very difficult. The example that I have shown was very easy to deliver because it's in Al city, which is a very small city, and this is a controlled zone that they could really do it and develop it. But I truly believe that once such kind of design is done or dark sky compliant is done, it shouldn't be labeled in the future as dark sky compliant. This is how a proper lighting design should be done. It's more human-centric and also friendly for them to see the stars.
Yeah, which marries it up, I guess, with what Charles said. I have to say, it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be seen as a restriction. I'm going to around see if they comes up. There isn't yet. Oh yes, there is.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. So my question, my name is Olga. I'm a Women in Lighting ambassador and also Dark Sky member. And when I studied this question about lighting pollution, I always remember that my professor told me that, Olga, basically there's no lighting pollution because light cannot give you pollution, but the air is not clean, and that's why you cannot see nothing. And I came from Moscow, and now I live in Milan, and it's totally true because even without lighting you cannot see nothing. And my question is that how do you think we could collaborate with maybe other sectors or with government or with some other specialists to resolve this problem, because we cannot do it only with lighting, as I see it.
Who wants to come back on that one?
Is it working? Oh, yeah. So, just to clarify a bit, the lighting, the pollution is caused not always by uplighting buildings. The biggest source of light pollution is this light that goes from the interior spaces to the outside. It goes horizontal and slightly with a 20 degrees above the horizon sky. So, and these are not really what you would expect them to cause a light pollution, right? So, we work on public realm and then we say, okay, we're not going to apply the trees because we don't want to create lighting pollutions. But this light fittings that is uplighting the tree has really minimum impact on polluting the sky. That diffuse light that's coming from the interiors of office buildings that they want to be bright at night because it would look like the building is full and so on and so forth. One option could be that this can be regulated in a way that, okay, you can do that of course you cannot just shut down and say you cannot, but you reach an agreement that there should be a curfew time after a specific cutoff. This needs to be reduced or at least managed in a way that it's very minimal, can be emitted to the sky. So this, if it's coming from an entity that has the power of regulating the environmental of a city, it is something everybody will be compliant with, of course. Yeah.
In Tucson, Arizona was one of the first dark sky cities, and obviously the IDA was founded in Arizona. But what's very interesting about Tucson is, obviously it's the community, it's about the street lighting, but what happens is, and one of the major impacts in what IS actually formulated the 5 principles with IDA, but the most important thing about that is control. And I think that that goes from all the way from the street lighting, which in Tucson in the middle of the night is dipped down to about 30%. And also, as you see with some of the Thorn products, they have the night tune, which is very important because, you know, it might be 2700K at peak hours, but then again, 10, 11, 12 o'clock through the night, it goes to 2200K because actually fire is the best color temperature to, you know, preserve the night sky, and that is, you know, in about, I think it was in 2020, they changed the regulation from 2700K now to 2200K as the recommended best practice for the color for the light. So I think, you know, it's very interesting, but it takes exterior, interior. What Mohammed was talking about is, again, the light trespass that's coming out of the buildings. It's not only how we're lighting the exterior of the buildings, it's about how you're controlling your interior space to spill out into, you know, the public realm.
I just think it comes down to control, but on a city-wide scale or a country-wide scale. And I think probably one of the best examples we know is France. They've got some very good few systems in place in Paris now, I believe, where at a certain time of night the retail lighting has to go off. And it's, Anne, would you like to add a little comment? Would you? As we happen to have a French lighting designer in the audience.
Hello. Yes, I just want to talk about the new law we have in France. It arrived by surprise 3 years ago at Christmas time, and it was kind of revolution for lighting designers because this new law now it's mandatory. You can't make any outdoor lighting project without following this law, and it's telling exactly what kind of sites you can lit, which one you can't lit, what time, light distribution, light colors, everything. And it changed completely in 3 or 4 times the way we made lighting design. And first impression was a shock, but as Charles said, then it became a challenge, and we found ways to respect these rules. And for instance, we are working in my office, a wonderful light office, on 2 projects. We had to make the renovation of the lighting master plan of Biarritz seashore. So it was a wonderful lighting project made 20 years ago, with light on the rocks, on the cliffs, and now it's impossible to do it again. So we make we try to respect the regulation. So we change the project, restrict it, and then we were not following the rule, and the city decided, okay, we will not do it. And on the other hand, I'm working on a project, it's Arcachon. It's a lovely city nearby the sea, and it's a new project. And first things we said, okay, you know, you are lighting the beach now, but you are not allowed to do it. We will try to find another way to make it. And the mayor just said, I want to have the beach lit, so I don't care. So it's really strange because there is a regulation, but it really depends on the client, on what he wants. So we are trying to find a way to do it well, even if we know that we are not supposed to do it. As you said, it's better to know what you are not going to do. That it's a new challenge, but the thing is that on that end, we are hyper respectful of the regulation as a lighting designers. But I'm working in a site where there is no light above horizontal, and there is a parking station with light coming from the parking building, and all we have done is there. I mean, for the stars, it's awful. So there is next challenge to fight for. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna, good education. Stephanie, oh yeah, go ahead.
So to your point, what I think we also tend to forget somehow is that among the darkness, light is somehow security and safety. So it's a human instinct to want to be able to see what is going on around them. Now, with our ancestors and even it's been derived to us today. We have periphery vision, right? And so when we're in complete darkness, when you want to look at something, you don't necessarily see it if you're looking straight at it, but rather if you look to the side, that's when you see it best. And so it feels like to a certain extent we no longer use this peripheral vision that we have anymore. Who knows? I mean, open-ended question. Are we going to have it generations down? We don't really know. But then one way of finding the balance between having the safety and security in a public realm or even in one's private home, and at the same time not being not causing nuisance towards our surroundings, is to control and to have some impact and some influence over the control system that is being put in place. So for instance, as Mohammed had mentioned, if it's a building in Dubai, let's say, we all know that whilst designing offices or buildings, we have to keep in mind that some lights are coordinated, linked to the BMS, Building Management System, and therefore it is our duty, I believe, to go the extra mile and coordinate this with the control consultant and say, at a certain extent, you need to be conscious and careful and considerate. So there are definitely ways to mitigate this, but we just need to find the proper platform to be able to all come together and actually speak about this and make it happen.
Thank you, Tony. Charles?
That's a good comment, and that reminds me, and Anna's comment reminds me of what I didn't say, which is in all of the regulation and prescriptive guidance, we also run the risk of making a joyless world. And no one wants that, least of all the designers in the room. And so we have to find a way through the dilemma. The mayor does not always save the day with saying, no, I'll have the lights, please. Which is not actually the right answer either. But all of our pursuit of darkness, and I'm all there, as you heard, there's a risk that we remove joy. We don't want to do that.
Excellent point, Bob. I think we've got a couple of questions on the floor. Mr.
Hello.
Martin.
Yes, I have a question. We see, it's partly for Courtney, we've seen a lot of RFPs coming up for Saudi, KSA. They are looking at on the PIF giga projects, whether you like it or not. We see a lot of text in there which says specifically, very specifically, it must be dark skies accredited.
Yeah.
How do we go about dealing with that when there is no such thing as a dark skies accreditation, right? It's a pledge to be in the spirit of. And at the same time, how do we then deal with the same clients that are asking for facade lighting, for example?
Yeah, that's tricky, Paul, because we do see a lot of RFPs coming through. I don't see that it's about requesting accreditation, because you're right, there's no single project accreditation, but there is city, place, observatory, like there are different accreditations for cities, right? So I think it comes back to a little bit about educating the clients on, what are the actual accreditations, first of all, that are available right now, but also, how do we teach them and show them? And that's, every presentation that I start with, especially in Saudi these days, starts with, okay, what are the 5 principles? What are we doing? And that doesn't mean no uplighting. By the way, it's focused lighting. There's a lot of equipment that we have available to us in today's market that can actually pinpoint, focus, spot, so there's 0 light spill on a facade off the actual, surface itself. So, typically we address it in an RFP, in a comments map. I don't think that it must be accredited, but we do see a lot right now, especially in KSA, and that's all the way from Aba to Medina, of course the Red Sea, because we know that many of the designers in the room are working on projects already there, but I think it's just the client understanding what that actually means. So that's the way that I'm, tackling the question. But yeah, you're right, we can't just have one accredited project. So it's just, answering and clarifying to the client what actually that means.
Thank you, Connie. I think we've got one more question on the floor.
Here. Hello. So actually I have a couple of questions, and First one is, don't you think that going fast with technology is leading us somehow to lose this kind of sense of humanity? I mean, when we're designing a home, thinking about how we feel. I mean, about the wellness side. I mean, the well-being in general. So I don't see these things happening in. I mean, as a lighting designer and working on so many projects, I see just we're kind of like illuminating and lighting up the project. It's just, I don't know, for some reason, just to, as you said, like you feel safer seeing everything. But I mean, also maybe some kind of light makes us like it actually creates anxiety. I mean, maybe less light can be more like functional. This is what I mean. So don't you think just being super fast with technology is kind of distracting us from being the real designers? If we're calling the city where we live is a home as well. So respecting the sky, and everything. And something else related to the client, because we're all working with some clients, and these clients, they're not educated enough for like in this field. So maybe it's better to educate them in a way where we like tell them how important it is to have like a really nice lighting design for the facade instead of just being impressive. So this is going to be actually impressive, and maybe the marketing team is going to be part of this. So it's marketing the project for the client in a way where we are actually respecting this and this and this. So it's going to be impressive on social media, which is what we use now, instead of just being impressive as seeing this amount of light on like just on my eye. I'm so sorry I'm talking too much. And last thing is sometimes honestly we are using this kind of like the spotlights or things in the facade in some countries. I mean, not everywhere. And the lighting designer is not actually lighting up the place where they need that place to be lighted up, but they are actually lighting the clients. You know what I mean? So maybe also knowing where to put the light is a language as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anybody have any thoughts? Miriam and then Stephanie? Yeah.
I'll just add something about what you said about the feeling safe about and what to light on our homes. I believe that's what you said. Actually, there's a study. Too much light can, the IDA does that study. Too much light can actually make you unsafe. We think that too much light, we will be safe if we light up all the area, but it turns out that the opposite. It's all about how you will apply that light. You can have a perfect light design, but you don't know what if you play strong, then you will have a big problem. I believe that's we need to educate ourselves first, and we need to spread awareness. Imagine if all of us here, we know the effects of light pollution, not only on the night sky, because now we're not talking about the night sky, but it affects animals, it affects us as human beings. So imagine all of us, we know the effects of light pollution. Definitely we will ask for it, we will ask to reduce. Yeah. And that's my point for that.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, so thank you for your question. It was a really good one. There's actually one aspect that we also sort of struggle with in terms of like lighting designers and whatnot. Most of the clients that we get would always want dialogue stagnations. And that by itself is a sort of different level of, presenting or just combining your lighting approach. And therefore, in some ways, it's part of the lighting designer's, let's say, duty to get on a call with their client and say, look, I know you're looking for these standards, and it's important because standards are there for a reason, right? They protect the project, they help you achieve what you need to achieve. But also light is a sensation, it's an emotion, at least the lighting designers it is. And so in some ways we need to highlight the importance of having contrast dark response. So to your point, you're absolutely right. It's also very important for us to convey that.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think we've just come to the end of our time for this session, so please thank the speakers for me. Right, round of applause. Thank you, listeners. That's it. And I'm sure, as previous sessions, all of our speakers will be milling around for a little bit while we change over, so feel free to approach them. They're all lovely, approachable people. We'd love to have a chat with you. We'll see.